When I first moved to Rapid City, I lived on the 3rd floor of a building with no elevator. One day at work, I decided to have some popcorn. While I waited for it to pop, I was bouncing from foot to foot. My left ankle rolled and broke. I spent several weeks climbing 3 flights of stairs, step by step, on crutches. But I'm not here to talk about my lack of grace. I'm here to talk about design. We are all one moment of impact away from being less able than we currently are. 1 in 3 households in this country is inhabited by at least one person with some kind of disability. Traditional design practices rob people with disabilities of the freedom to act independently. Our home is the center of our world. Our memories of friends and loved ones are rooted there. It is where we kissed the skinned knees of our children and planted the rose bushes in the backyard. Our home is the physical link to our past, and many people want to remain in the home, particularly as they age. Our existing stock of homes makes that goal difficult, if not dangerous, to attain. The vast majority of housing in this country is missing one or more basic accessibility features, including lever-style door handles and faucets, extra-wide hallways and doors, accessible electrical controls, no-step entry, and single-level living. And that's just the basic accessibility. Our bathrooms, laundry rooms, and kitchens pose significant barriers and risk to people with disabilities. In many communities across the country, goods, services, and social connections cannot be accessed without a car. At some point, we will not be able to drive. When that day arrives, we either become dependent on other people or isolated. In the worst situations, we continue to drive, putting ourselves and others at risk because our ability to come and go independently means more to us than safety. We live in the digital age, so we must include the internet and the devices we use to access it in our discussions about design. Connecting adults with technology is one of my professional passions. I was teaching a man to use Facebook one day, and I asked him to click the globe. He looked at me and said, "What globe?" So I pointed to where it was on the screen, and he leaned really close and declared, "That is a globe." Design can either enhance or impede our ability to act independently. Design for all is critical to restoring ability, and it includes accessible, usable, and universal design. Accessible design refers to the practice of considering the needs of people with disabilities when creating products and services. This is the best well-known of the Design for All principles because of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires public goods and services to be fully accessible to people with disabilities. Usability refers to the ease with which we can learn to use a product and remember its operation upon subsequent uses. It is a user-focused approach to design. Usability focus areas include learnability, consistency, efficiency, and effectiveness? Is it easy to learn and remember how to operate? Are product features clearly and consistently labeled? Can tasks be performed with minimal effort? And can our users accomplish their goals? I owned an automatic pet feeder once. It had 3 buttons. To access the programming menu, I had to press 2 buttons in the right order. If I pressed the wrong 2 buttons, the hopper would start dropping food into the bowl and continue to drop food until I pressed the right 2 buttons. Once I finally got to the programming menu, setting the meal timing and size was a whole new ordeal and poor usability. Remote controls for electronic devices are also notorious for poor usability. Programming and day-to-day operation leaves many of us feeling baffled. The gold standard is universal design. Products and environments are made to be used by all people. It seeks to eliminate or minimize the need for assistive technologies. Universal design operates beyond the able-disabled dichotomy by embracing human diversity. For example, the needs of both men and women will be considered during the design process. Automobile airbags provide an excellent illustration of why human diversity matters in design. They were initially tested using dummies the size of the average man, approximately 5'9", 173 pounds. We now know that airbags pose significant risk to people shorter than 4'11" or taller than 6'3". The use of more diverse crash test dummies, including children and infant sizes, is a recent development. We see elements of universal design every day. Lever-style door handles can be opened by nearly everyone. They're one of my personal favorites because when I'm carrying my laundry basket up the stairs, I can open the door with my elbow. Another example are curb cuts and sidewalks. They're great for people who use a power chair as well as someone pushing a stroller. For the vast majority of human history, our homes and communities were inhabited by young people. Take a moment, look around the room. We have about 100 people with us here today. In 1900, more than half would have been younger than 25. And perhaps more startling, 1 in 3 would have been younger than 15, and only about 5 would have been older than 65. Things are different now. Age demographics have shifted tremendously. Only about 1 in 3 people in the United States is younger than 25. In fact, half of our population is older than 36. We are living through an unprecedented event in human history, arguably the most significant social change of our time, the aging of our population. The baby boom generation sits at the center of our discussions on aging. Pew Research tells us 10,000 boomers will turn 65 every day until 2030. What does that number really tell us? Without something to compare it to, not a lot. We don't know how many people turn 65 every day before the boomer generation. It doesn't tell us that the millennial generation, my generation, became the largest living generation this year. It doesn't tell us that low birth rates across the globe are driving the increase in the number of older people. I cannot count the number of times I have been told we just have to make it through the boomer bubble. I am here to dispel that myth. The boomers will not go down in history. I predict the boomer generation will be recorded in our history books as the last generation of children born to large families. Because of low birth rates, we can anticipate that our homes and our communities will be inhabited by smaller, older families. And while the risk of disability does increase for every decade of life past age 65, I want to stop you from going down the road that design for all is only an aging issue. According to the Social Security Administration, 1 out of every 4 20-year-olds will become disabled before they retire. The frailty of our bodies makes this an issue for all of us. My professional role brings me into contact with a lot of really amazing people. One such person is Katie Gresseth, the Executive Director of the Workforce Diversity Network. We were having coffee one day, and she shared her story with me. She told me in 1986, she was beaten by a brutal man in an isolated field. He stomped her face over and over again with his booted foot. She was left for dead with a fractured skull and eye socket. Her body was covered with bruises and open wounds. She healed and moved on with her life, but the full ramifications of this event would not be realized until 2 decades later. Her retinas detached because of the head trauma she experienced. After several emergency surgeries attempting to repair her damaged eyes, she was ruled legally blind. Katie was 43. Design is missing from our public discourse on aging and disability. Design is critical to restoring ability. Design for all is the key to a future where our children and our grandchildren can embrace the passage of time that gifts us with old age. Don't wait for your moment of impact to view the world through the eyes of a person with a disability. When you get home today, I want you to sit in your car and I want you to look at your front door. Could you go inside if you used a wheelchair? And before you say, I would just move, less than half of the housing in this country has no step entry. How can you change this? You demand design for all during home renovation and construction. You demand design for all during website and technology development. You demand design for all during community and economic development projects. What happens if you do nothing? You lose your ability to act independently. You become isolated in your home. You experience avoidable injuries. You are forced into an institution. And you die before your time. Thank you.